Gang destroyed a black woman's diner, not knowing she was the most dangerous agent. Listen up, you worthless black bitch. Your kind doesn't belong in my neighborhood. Derek Morrison's voice carried across Maya's soul kitchen as he swept the tip jar off the counter. Coins scattered across the floor while shocked customers recorded everything on their phones. The 45-year-old diner owner knelt quietly to collect the money, her grandmother's recipes still simmering on the stove behind her. Derek leaned closer, his expensive cologne mixing with the smell of cornbread. "I've destroyed 12 monkey businesses like yours, sweetheart. What makes you think some ghetto cook can stop a white man like me?" Maya's hands remained steady as she picked up the last quarter. 3 elderly men at the corner booth, her regular customers for 2 years, watched in stunned silence. A young mother quickly covered her daughter's ears. What Derek Morrison didn't know was that those same gentle hands had once eliminated targets across 4 continents. Maya Williams had never planned to own a restaurant. 5 years ago, she was someone entirely different, someone whose name appeared in classified files that would never see daylight. The transition from eliminating international criminals to serving comfort food seemed impossible, yet here she stood every morning at 5 a.m., rolling biscuit dough with the same precision she once used to assemble sniper rifles. Soul Kitchen occupied a corner building in Atlanta's historic Sweet Auburn district, where gentrification crept closer each month like rising floodwater. The diner's red brick exterior had weathered 60 years of civil rights protests, urban decay, and recent revitalization efforts. Inside, black and white photographs lined the walls, Dr. King sharing a meal at the very counter where Maya now served sweet tea, Rosa Parks laughing with Maya's grandmother over a slice of peach cobbler. Maya inherited more than recipes when her grandmother passed. She inherited a mission: keep this corner of history alive when developers wanted to erase it. The kitchen became her sanctuary, where muscle memory from years of tactical training translated perfectly to knife work and timing. Her hands, which once could kill silently in 7 different ways, now created magic with cornbread and collard greens. But Maya carried invisible scars. Some nights she jolted awake hearing helicopter rotors that weren't there. Loud noises made her reach for weapons she no longer carried. The basement beneath Soul Kitchen housed more than storage. It contained a complete training facility where Maya spent sleepless hours maintaining skills she prayed never to use again. Her customers saw only the gentle woman who remembered their orders, asked about their families, and never charged the homeless veterans who wandered in during lunch rush. They didn't notice how she positioned herself to see all entrances, how her eyes automatically cataloged potential threats, or how she could probably kill everyone in the room before they finished their sweet potato pie. Jasmine Patterson changed everything. The 19-year-old pre-law student had knocked on Maya's door 2 years ago, desperate for work to pay tuition at Spelman College. Something about the girl's fierce determination reminded Maya of herself at that age, before the CIA recruited her, before she learned that the world contained monsters wearing human faces. Jasmine brought life back to the diner. She memorized every regular customer story, organized community meetings in the back room, and treated Maya like the mother she'd lost in childhood. Maya found herself planning for Jasmine's future, setting aside money for law school, teaching her self-defense just because a young woman should know how to protect herself. The girl had no idea that her surrogate mother once spent 3 months infiltrating a human trafficking ring in Somalia, or that Maya's seemingly random questions about Jasmine's daily routine were actually security assessments designed to keep her safe. Officer Carlos Martinez represented one of Maya's few connections to law enforcement. The honest cop had discovered Soul Kitchen during his rookie year and never stopped coming. He respected Maya's privacy when she deflected questions about her past, sensing that some stories were better left buried. Martinez provided unofficial protection simply by being visible, his patrol car parked outside during lunch rush, sending a clear message to potential troublemakers. Mr. Washington, 75 years old and a veteran of Birmingham's civil rights campaigns, held court at the corner booth every afternoon. He'd arrived the day Soul Kitchen opened, claimed that corner table, and declared it his office for playing chess and dispensing wisdom to younger generations. Maya treasured their conversations about resilience, about surviving when the world seemed determined to crush your spirit. Derek Morrison represented everything Maya had spent her CIA career fighting against, men who use power to destroy the innocent. His Morrison Development Group had systematically targeted black-owned businesses across Atlanta, using legal manipulation and intimidation to acquire prime real estate for luxury condos that longtime residents couldn't afford. Derek's methodology was ruthlessly efficient. Identify vulnerable properties, exploit regulatory weaknesses, apply pressure until owners sold for fractions of market value. 12 businesses had fallen to his tactics in 18 months. Soul Kitchen represented his 13th target, and Maya Williams looked like just another obstacle to demolish. What Derek couldn't possibly know was that Maya Williams had spent 12 years studying men exactly like him, predators who hid behind wealth and connections while destroying communities. She knew their weaknesses, their fears, their breaking points. The question wasn't whether Derek would try to take her dinner. The question was whether he would survive the attempt. The attack came disguised as routine bureaucracy. Maya was prepping vegetables when 3 men in cheap suits walked through her door at 10:47 a.m. They flashed badges too quickly to read and announced themselves as health department inspectors conducting a surprise compliance audit. Something felt wrong immediately. Real inspectors didn't work in groups of 3. They didn't wear identical sunglasses indoors. And they definitely didn't smile like predators. "Ma'am, step aside while we investigate," the lead inspector said, pulling on latex gloves. "This won't take long." Maya watched with growing unease. Their movements were too coordinated. One distracted her with paperwork while another disappeared into the walk-in cooler. The third blocked her view of the kitchen. "Found something," the cooler inspector called out, emerging with milk. "Expired 3 days ago." Maya's eyes narrowed. She'd checked that milk yesterday. It was fresh. 20 minutes later, they'd discovered cockroaches in flour storage Maya cleaned religiously, grease buildup behind spotless equipment, and temperature violations in freezers that had passed inspection 2 months ago. The citation made her blood run cold. $50,000 in fines, immediate closure pending re-inspection, 30 days to comply or lose her license permanently. "You can appeal, of course," he said with mock sympathy. "But I'd suggest paying the fine and moving on. Sometimes it's easier to start fresh elsewhere." As they left, Maya noticed crucial evidence. The lead inspector's Italian leather shoes, easily $800. No government employee wore shoes worth more than her monthly rent. Derek Morrison had made his first move. Maya stood alone holding the citation, $50,000 that would drain her savings, money planned for Jasmine's law school tuition. The photographs of civil rights heroes seemed to watch expectantly, waiting to see if she would fight or fold. Outside, a black BMW idled across the street. Through tinted windows, a figure watched her reaction. Derek Morrison wanted to see her break. Maya walked to her register, pulled out her CIA pension checkbook, and wrote a check for the full amount. She'd paid worse prices for justice before, but this was just the opening move. Derek Morrison's war room looked like a military operation planning center. Maps of Maya's neighborhood covered one wall, marked with red pins showing every business he'd already conquered. Photos of Maya, Jasmine, and regular customers were pinned to a board labeled Targets. Financial records, daily schedules, and surveillance photos created a detailed portrait of Soul Kitchen's operations. The health inspection was just a love tap, Derek told his assembled team of corrupt officials and hired muscle. "Now we show this uppity bitch what real power looks like. I want her broken, not just broke." Councilman Bradley shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Derek, maybe we should stick to legal pressure. The media attention." "Screw the media," Derek snarled. "I've destroyed 12 monkey businesses in 18 months. What makes you think some ghetto cook can stop me?" Police Chief Collins spread architectural plans across the table. "My boys can increase patrol presence, write citations for every tiny violation, parking, noise complaints, loitering." Derek smiled coldly. "Think bigger, gentlemen. I want her customers terrified to walk through that door." Week 1. 2. Psychological warfare. The protesters appeared on Monday morning like a coordinated invasion. 20 people carrying professionally printed signs marched in circles outside Soul Kitchen. "Dirty kitchen kills. Maya, =health hazard. Protect our children from food poisoning." Maya recognized the theater immediately. These weren't angry neighbors. They were paid actors reading from scripts, their protest chants too polished, their outrage too performed. Local news crews arrived within hours, interviewing the fake protesters who delivered rehearsed sound bites about community safety concerns. By Wednesday, the bomb threats started. Anonymous callers reported explosives in the building 3 times that week. Each call triggered full evacuations, bomb squad searches, and media circuses that left customers too frightened to return. Maya watched her lunch crowd dwindle from 40 people to 12. The digital attack came Friday night. Hackers seized control of Soul Kitchen's social media accounts, posting racist rants and inflammatory content under Maya's name. By morning, an online mob was calling for boycotts and posting death threats in the comments. Maya deleted the posts and changed passwords, but screenshots had already spread across Twitter and Facebook. Her reputation, built over 3 years of community service, crumbled in 12 hours. Week 3. 4. Economic strangulation. The power went out during Tuesday's dinner rush. Electrical problems, the utility company explained, though Maya's CIA training recognized deliberate sabotage. Spoiled food cost her $15,000. The water main burst Thursday, flooding the kitchen and ruining another week of inventory. Derek's economic warfare proved devastatingly effective. His shell companies quietly purchased contracts with every food distributor within 50 miles. Maya found herself driving 3 hours daily to buy groceries at retail prices, watching her profit margins evaporate. The financial attack struck Friday morning. Maya's bank account froze due to suspicious activity reports. Another Derek Morrison manipulation. She couldn't pay employees for 2 weeks. Jasmine offered to work for free, but Maya refused to let the girl suffer for her fight. Community support began cracking under pressure. Half her regular customers stopped coming, too frightened by the protests and bomb threats. Mr. Washington arrived Tuesday with fresh bruises, claiming random muggers had beaten him after lunch. Maya knew better. "Maybe you should consider Derek's offer," Officer Martinez suggested quietly during his patrol. "This is getting dangerous for everyone." Maya's response was ice-cold, professional calm. "I've faced worse than Derek Morrison." Week 5, 6. Personal terror campaign. Maya's car exploded in the parking lot at 2 a.m. Sunday morning. The fireball lit up the entire block, melting her license plate and shattering the diner's front windows. Security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during the explosion. Police filed it as probable insurance fraud. Derek's message arrived with the sunrise. Racist graffiti covering Soul Kitchen's exterior walls, spray-painted slurs that made passing pedestrians stop and stare. Maya spent 6 hours scrubbing the words away, her neighbors watching from safe distances. The kidnapping happened on Wednesday. Jasmine disappeared after her constitutional law class, her phone going straight to voicemail. Maya's CIA training kicked in immediately. She accessed traffic cameras, traced Jasmine's route, and identified 3 possible intercept points. 24 hours of systematic searching turned up nothing. Thursday evening, Jasmine stumbled through Soul Kitchen's front door, traumatized but physically unharmed. A note was pinned to her shirt. "Next time won't be so gentle. Make the smart choice." Maya held the shaking girl, feeling something dark and lethal awakening inside her chest. Derek Morrison had just crossed a line that activated every protective instinct from her CIA days. "What did they do to you?" Maya whispered. "Blindfolded me, kept me in a basement. They kept saying terrible things about you, about us. They said next time—" Jasmine couldn't finish the sentence. Maya's hands remained steady, but her voice carried undertones that would have terrified anyone who knew her history. "Pack a bag. You're staying at Officer Martinez's house until this is over." Week 7. Death threats. The bullet arrived Monday morning, delivered through regular mail in a manila envelope. Maya's photograph was taped to the package, her face marked with a red X. Professional surveillance teams followed her everywhere. Black SUVs with tinted windows, men in tactical gear who made no effort to hide their presence. Derek's final provocation came Tuesday afternoon. He walked into Soul Kitchen carrying a visible sidearm, flanked by 6 armed security contractors in military-style gear. The few remaining customers fled in terror. 48 hours, Derek announced loudly, his hand resting on his holster. "Sign these papers and disappear, or next time that girl goes missing, she won't come back, and neither will you." Maya studied Derek's tactical team with professional interest. Military backgrounds, expensive equipment, coordinated movement patterns. Derek had hired serious muscle for his endgame. "You just made this personal, Derek," Maya said quietly, "and you have no idea who you're dealing with." Derek laughed, misreading her composure as submission. "What's a tired old cook gonna do? Call the health department?" Outside, bulldozers and wrecking equipment assembled in the parking lot. City permits for emergency demolition had mysteriously appeared overnight. Derek Morrison was done playing games. Tomorrow he will erase Soul Kitchen from existence. But Maya Williams had already begun planning his destruction. Maya locked Soul Kitchen's front door at exactly 6 p.m., flipping the sign to "closed" for what might be the final time. She watched Derek's surveillance team position themselves across the street, then walked calmly to the back office where her grandmother's portrait hung above an antique filing cabinet. The hidden compartment opened with a soft click. Inside lay remnants of a life Derek Morrison couldn't imagine. Encrypted satellite phone, tactical gear, forged identification documents, and a thick manila folder marked "Classified, Eyes Only." Maya's fingers traced the CIA seal embossed on the cover. She dialed a number memorized 12 years ago. "Director Chen?" A crisp voice answered on the second ring. "Sarah, it's Maya Williams. I need a favor." "Jesus, Maya. You're supposed to be dead to the world. What's wrong?" "Derek Morrison. His money laundering operation. How much do you know?" A pause. "Enough to be very interested in anyone who can get close to him." "Are you offering what I think you're offering?" Maya studied surveillance photos of Derek's team through her window. "He threatened Jasmine. He crossed a line. Full operational support? Just legal protection. I'm going to destroy him, but I need immunity when the dust settles. Consider it done. Maya, don't hold back. This bastard has been untouchable for too long." Maya disconnected, feeling 13 years of retirement fall away like old skin. Derek Morrison thought he was hunting a cook. Tomorrow he would discover he'd cornered a predator. Derek Morrison arrived at Soul Kitchen Wednesday morning like a conquering general, leading a convoy of black SUVs, a demolition crew, and a carefully orchestrated media circus. 6 hired mercenaries in tactical gear flanked him, their military bearing obvious to anyone who understood violence. Local news crews set up cameras at precise angles. Derek had called them personally to witness Maya's voluntary surrender. The lunch crowd had thinned to a handful of brave souls. Mr. Washington at his corner table, 2 college students studying over coffee, and a young mother feeding her toddler. Everyone else had been scared away by Derek's escalating campaign of terror. Maya emerged from the kitchen carrying her grandmother's cast-iron skillet, the same one that had fed civil rights leaders 60 years ago. She moved with unusual calm, her steps measured and purposeful. Jasmine stood behind the counter, her hands shaking as she watched Derek's small army arrange themselves throughout the diner. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," Derek announced with theatrical flourish, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to getting his way. "Today we're witnessing necessary progress. This failing establishment will be demolished to make way for affordable housing that will benefit hard-working families." He gestured dismissively toward Maya. "Sometimes tough decisions require removing obstacles to community improvement. This woman has had every opportunity to cooperate with legitimate city development." Maya stepped forward, still holding the skillet, her voice carrying clearly to every camera and microphone in the room. 60 years ago, my grandmother served Dr. King lunch at this very counter. She fed freedom fighters when restaurants across the South refused to serve black people. Today, these men want to erase that history." Her eyes met Derek's with unflinching directness. "But they forgot one thing. Some of us don't go quietly." Derek's confidence wavered slightly. Something in Maya's posture had changed, a subtle shift that his military contractors noticed immediately. She no longer looked like a frightened restaurant owner. She looked like someone calculating angles of attack. "Enough speeches," Derek snarled. "Jenkins, escort the ladies outside so we can begin demolition." The first mercenary, a thick-necked man with marine tattoos, reached for Jasmine's arm. "Come on, sweetheart. Time to go." Maya's protective instincts exploded like a triggered landmine. Maya moved with fluid precision that defied physics. The cast-iron skillet became an extension of her body as she pivoted toward Jenkins, the heavy cookware connecting with his temple in a perfect arc. The sound echoed through the diner like a church bell, a deep, resonant clang that would replay in viral videos for months. Jenkins collapsed instantly, his tactical gear useless against Maya's surgical strike. The second mercenary swung a telescoping baton, but Maya had already ducked, sweeping his legs with a movement that sent him crashing into the dessert display case. Glass shattered, pies exploded across the floor, and 200 pounds of muscle landed unconscious in a pile of banana cream. Mercenary number 3 pulled a knife, his military training telling him to create distance. Maya grabbed the napkin dispenser from the nearest table and hurled it with sniper-like accuracy. Metal met forehead with a satisfying crack, followed by the pressure point strike to his neck that dropped him like a stone. The fourth attacker tried to tackle her from behind, launching himself across 3 tables in a desperate lunge. Maya sidestepped effortlessly, using his momentum against him as they crashed through the dining room. She weaponized everything within reach: scalding coffee from the pot behind the counter, a wooden chair that splintered against his ribs, the sharp edge of a table that caught him perfectly in the solar plexus. The remaining 2 mercenaries hesitated, watching their colleagues scattered across the floor like broken dolls. Their expensive tactical training hadn't prepared them for a middle-aged cook who moved like water and struck like lightning. Derek's mouth hung open in disbelief. "What the hell?" Maya stood in the center of her destroyed dining room, 6 unconscious men at her feet, the skillet still gripped casually in her right hand. She wasn't even breathing hard. Every phone in the room had captured the action. The young mother's live stream on Facebook exploded from 12 viewers to 50,000 in real time. #Skillet Justice began trending within minutes as the video spread across social media platforms like wildfire. Maya turned to face the cameras, her voice steady and clear. "I'm not moving. This diner stays open. Mr. Morrison, if you want to try this again, you're welcome to come back with better backup." The college student who'd been filming whispered to her friend, "Did that really just happen?" Mr. Washington stood slowly from his corner booth, his weathered hands applauding. "That's my girl, just like her grandmother. Never back down from a fight." Derek's face cycled through shock, rage, and humiliation as cameras captured every expression. His expensive mercenaries, men he'd paid top dollar for their intimidation factor, lay scattered across the floor like discarded toys. "This isn't over," he stammered, backing toward the door. "You'll pay for this. I'll have you arrested for assault." "Will you?" Maya asked mildly, gesturing toward the news cameras. "Because it looks like you brought armed men to terrorize a small business owner. How do you think that's going to play on the evening news?" Derek's retreat became a full rout as reporters followed him to his BMW, shouting questions about his security team and their military-grade equipment. His carefully orchestrated media event had become a public relations nightmare. "Mr. Morrison, how does it feel to be defeated by a cook with a skillet? Were you planning to demolish an occupied building? Is it true you've been targeting black-owned businesses across the city?" Derek's SUV peeled out of the parking lot, leaving his unconscious mercenaries behind for the paramedics who were already arriving. Within 2 hours, Soul Kitchen was packed beyond capacity. Customers drove from across Atlanta to eat at the diner where a grandmother's skillet had defeated 6 armed men. The hashtag #MayasKitchen joined #SkilletJustice as social media users shared their own stories of standing up to bullies. Local news stations ran the story every hour. National networks picked it up by evening. Maya Williams became an overnight symbol of resistance against gentrification, proof that sometimes the little guy really could win. But as Maya swept up broken glass and wiped down tables, she knew Derek Morrison wouldn't accept this humiliation quietly. Men like him never did. The real war was just beginning. And Derek was about to discover that viral fame could be a double-edged sword, especially when your opponent knew exactly how to wield it. Derek Morrison's counterattack came swift and merciless, launched from the marble-floored offices of Atlanta's most expensive law firm. Within 24 hours of his humiliation at Soul Kitchen, Derek had assembled a legal team that specialized in destroying lives through paperwork and procedural warfare. The arrest warrant arrived Friday morning at 6 a.m. Maya was prepping biscuits when 6 patrol cars surrounded Soul Kitchen, their red and blue lights painting the pre-dawn darkness in ominous colors. Detective Richards, a man Maya had never seen before, walked through her front door with handcuffs already drawn. "Maya Williams, you're under arrest for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, and assault on security personnel acting in official capacity." Maya's hands remained steady as she wiped flour from her fingers. Official capacity? Mr. Morrison's men were licensed building inspectors conducting legitimate city business. You attacked civil servants with a deadly weapon. The lie was so perfectly crafted that Maya almost admired its audacity. Derek had retroactively created documentation making his mercenaries appear legitimate, complete with forged city permits and inspector credentials. Derek's public relations machine worked overtime to flip the narrative. By noon, edited video footage flooded social media, carefully cut segments that removed Derek's racist threats and focused solely on Maya's violent assault against innocent inspectors. The new story portrayed Derek as a businessman terrified for his life, a victim of reverse racism and anti-development extremism. His mercenaries became building safety experts who'd been brutally attacked while trying to protect the community. Derek gave tearful interviews from his hospital bed, though his only injury was a bruised ego, describing his traumatic experience at the hands of a dangerous woman with military training. "I tried to reason with her," Derek told Channel 5 News, his voice cracking with practiced emotion. "But she became violent without provocation. I fear she's a danger to society, especially given her background in government assassination work." The last part was Derek's masterstroke. His private investigators had uncovered Maya's CIA files through illegal channels, but he presented the information as concerned citizen research. Headlines screamed, "Former spy attacks citizens. CIA agent goes rogue in restaurant. Trained killer weaponizes kitchen utensils." The viral support that had buoyed Maya after her skillet victory evaporated overnight. Social media comments that once praised her courage now questioned her mental stability. #skillet justice became #skillet danger as public perception shifted. "Maybe she did go too far," former supporters whispered. 6 men in the hospital seems excessive. Local businesses that had initially rallied behind Maya began distancing themselves. The community coalition formed to fight gentrification quietly disbanded. Even some of Soul Kitchen's regular customers stopped coming, afraid of being associated with that violent woman. Maya sat in a county jail cell, bail set impossibly high at $250,000. Another Derek Morrison manipulation through his golf buddy Judge Patterson. Jasmine couldn't afford the bond. Officer Martinez faced departmental pressure to avoid the case. Only Mr. Washington maintained faith, visiting daily despite threats against his own safety. Derek held press conferences portraying himself as a victim of anti-business violence and racial hatred against successful white entrepreneurs. He appeared on talk shows discussing the dangerous precedent of vigilante justice and the need for stronger hate crime legislation. His legal team painted Maya as an unhinged veteran who couldn't adjust to civilian life and had weaponized everyday objects against innocent citizens. They demanded federal investigation into her past CIA activities, suggesting she might be a rogue operative who'd gone off the rails. The city council, pressured by media attention and Derek's political connections, fast-tracked his development permits. Construction equipment assembled outside Soul Kitchen while Maya remained locked up, unable to protect her grandmother's legacy. Derek's triumph lasted exactly 6 days. FBI agents arrived at the courthouse Tuesday morning, but not for the reasons Derek expected. Agent Sarah Chen flashed credentials that made the local prosecutor's face go pale. "We're assuming jurisdiction over this case," Chen announced. "Maya Williams is a federal asset involved in an ongoing money laundering investigation." Derek's lawyer sputtered objections. "Our client is the victim here. Miss Williams attacked your client," Chen interrupted coldly, "is under federal surveillance for racketeering, bribery, and civil rights violations. Miss Williams has been working undercover to gather evidence." The courtroom erupted. Derek's face cycled through confusion, rage, and dawning horror as Chen continued her revelation. Every conversation, every threat, every illegal action has been documented. Mr. Morrison's operation extends far beyond simple real estate development. We're looking at systematic targeting of minority-owned businesses, money laundering through shell companies, and conspiracy to violate federal civil rights laws. Derek's illegal acquisition of Maya's classified files became a federal crime. His wiretapped phone calls discussing bribes with city officials provided perfect evidence. His pattern of targeting black-owned businesses constituted civil rights violations carrying decades in prison. Maya took the witness stand with quiet dignity, no longer playing the role of broken restaurant owner. Her testimony revealed 13 years of careful planning, strategic positioning, and patient investigation. Derek Morrison's organization has been on federal radar for 2 years, she explained to the stunned courtroom. My restaurant provided perfect cover for surveillance. Every interaction was documented, every threat recorded. She'd never been a victim. She'd been a hunter, using Derek's own arrogance against him. His escalating attacks had been guided by Maya's psychological manipulation, designed to make him reveal his true methods and expose his entire network. "You studied me?" Derek whispered from the defendant's table. "I studied your type," Maya corrected. "Men who use wealth and connections to destroy communities. Your textbook predictable, Derek. Every move you made, I anticipated 3 steps ahead." Evidence flooded the courtroom. Recorded phone calls, financial documents, testimony from Derek's other victims, proof of bribery and intimidation across 18 months of crimes. Maya's breakdown had been performance art, designed to make Derek overconfident and careless. Derek's mercenaries, faced with federal conspiracy charges, began cooperating immediately. City officials implicated in the bribery scheme scrambled to cut deals. Derek's entire empire collapsed in 48 hours. His final meltdown came during cross-examination, when the pressure of impending life imprisonment stripped away his polished facade. Racist rants poured out in front of rolling cameras, confirming every accusation of bias and hatred. "You people think you can destroy white success," Derek screamed. "I'll see that monkey bitch and her pet student dead before I let—" Judge Hamilton's gavel silenced him, but the damage was done. Derek Morrison had revealed his true character to the world, destroying any remaining sympathy for his victim narrative. The man who'd tried to erase Maya Williams had instead erased himself. Justice, it turned out, tasted better than revenge. The federal courthouse buzzed with anticipation as Derek Morrison's trial entered its final phase. National media packed the gallery, cameras capturing every moment of what had become the most watched civil rights case in years. Derek sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suits replaced by prison clothing that symbolized his fall from power. Maya Williams entered the courtroom with quiet dignity, no longer hiding behind the mask of a simple restaurant owner. Her posture radiated the confidence of someone who had orchestrated every moment leading to this confrontation. Jasmine sat in the front row, finally understanding the full scope of Maya's deception and protection. Judge Patricia Hamilton called the court to order. We'll now hear closing arguments in the case of United States versus Derek Morrison. Derek's defense attorney, Thomas Blackwood, launched a desperate final gambit. Despite overwhelming evidence, he attempted to paint Derek as the victim of an elaborate government conspiracy. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client stands accused by a woman who has spent her entire adult life lying professionally. Maya Williams is a trained deceiver, a government assassin who manipulated Derek Morrison into actions he never would have taken otherwise." Blackwood paced before the jury box, his voice rising with practiced indignation. "She created a false identity, established an elaborate cover story, and systematically entrapped my client using psychological manipulation techniques learned from the CIA. This isn't justice, it's government entrapment on a massive scale." Derek watched his lawyer's performance with growing desperation. 18 months in federal custody had stripped away his arrogance, revealing the frightened bully beneath his polished exterior. "Furthermore," Blackwood continued, "the government wants you to believe that Derek Morrison is some kind of criminal mastermind. But look at the evidence objectively. He's a businessman who used standard development practices to revitalize neglected neighborhoods. His only crime was underestimating a professional manipulator. Federal prosecutor Maria Santos called Maya to the witness stand for the final time. Maya's testimony would either cement Derek's conviction or create reasonable doubt about government overreach. Miss Williams, defense counsel suggests you entrapped Derek Morrison. How do you respond? Maya's voice carried the authority of someone who had faced much worse adversaries than Derek Morrison. Entrapment requires inducing someone to commit crimes they wouldn't normally commit. Derek Morrison had already destroyed 12 black-owned businesses before I ever met him. I simply documented his existing criminal behavior. She turned to face the jury directly. Derek Morrison targeted my community because he believed we were powerless to stop him. He used racism, intimidation, and violence because those tactics had worked before. I didn't create his hatred. I exposed it. Santos approached the witness stand. Walk us through your decision-making process. Derek Morrison represented a specific type of predator, Maya explained with clinical precision. Men who hide behind wealth and legal connections while destroying vulnerable communities. My CIA training taught me to study such individuals, understand their psychology, and predict their escalation patterns. She gestured toward evidence tables loaded with recordings, documents, and photographs. Every threat Derek made, every bribe he offered, every act of violence he orchestrated, those were his choices. I simply positioned myself to document them. Maya's most devastating testimony came when she analyzed Derek's psychological weaknesses. Her clinical dissection of his personality revealed 13 years of careful study. Derek Morrison suffers from narcissistic personality disorder combined with deep-seated racial prejudice. Men like him view any resistance from people they consider inferior as personal attacks requiring escalation. His pattern was entirely predictable. She detailed how Derek's need for dominance made him vulnerable to manipulation. I knew that if I appeared weak initially, his ego would demand increasingly dramatic displays of power. Each escalation provided more evidence of his criminal intent. The courtroom listened in fascination as Maya revealed her strategic thinking. Derek Morrison thought he was hunting a helpless restaurant owner. In reality, he was a laboratory subject demonstrating textbook criminal behavior for federal investigators. Unable to contain himself any longer, Derek Morrison exploded from the defendant's table. You bitch! You manipulative bitch! You think you're so smart, but you're just another uppity... Mr. Morrison, Judge Hamilton's gavel cracked like thunder. You will remain silent or be removed from this courtroom. But Derek's mask had finally slipped completely. Months of imprisonment, public humiliation, and impending life sentence had shattered his self-control. The sophisticated businessman facade crumbled, revealing the racist bully beneath. She destroyed everything I built, Derek screamed at the jury. These people come into our neighborhoods, take our opportunities, then cry racism when we fight back. I should have burned that monkey's restaurant to the ground. Security officers moved to restrain him, but Derek's breakdown continued. You want to know the truth? Yes, I targeted their businesses. Yes, I used whatever means necessary. White people built this country, and we have the right to protect what's ours. Derek's confession echoed through the silent courtroom, recorded by every camera and microphone. His own words provided the final evidence needed for conviction, eliminating any pretense that his actions were motivated by legitimate business concerns. Judge Hamilton restored order, but the damage was complete. Derek Morrison had convicted himself through his own hatred. When called for redirect examination, Maya addressed the jury with quiet power. Derek Morrison just revealed who he really is, not the victim his lawyers portrayed, not the legitimate businessman he claimed to be, but a man who believes his race gives him the right to destroy others. This case isn't about government overreach, it's about accountability. She gestured toward Derek, now slumped in defeat at the defendant's table. 13 years ago, I retired from the CIA because I was tired of fighting monsters overseas while similar monsters operated freely in American communities. Derek Morrison proved that some battles have to be fought at home. Her voice carried the weight of personal conviction. Every family business he destroyed, every community he gentrified, every person he terrorized, they deserved a champion. Sometimes justice requires patience, planning, and the willingness to let evil expose itself. Jury deliberation lasted 47 minutes, a record for a federal racketeering case. When they returned, the foreman's voice rang clearly through the packed courtroom. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of racketeering, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. The litany continued through all 23 counts. Derek Morrison received life imprisonment without possibility of parole. As bailiffs led Derek away in shackles, he made one final threat. "This isn't over, Williams. I have friends, connections. You'll pay for this." Maya's response was barely audible but carried clearly in the silent courtroom. "Your friends are already in prison, Derek, and I've been collecting evidence on them too." The gavel's final strike echoed like a gunshot, sealing Derek Morrison's fate and vindicating Maya's 13-year strategy. Justice had been served not through violence, but through patience, intelligence, and the systematic exposure of evil. Outside the courthouse, Maya Williams walked free while Derek Morrison began a life sentence. The hunter had finally caught her prey. Derek Morrison's sentencing hearing drew crowds that spilled from the courthouse steps into the surrounding streets. Judge Hamilton's words carried the weight of historical justice as she delivered the final verdict that would echo through civil rights law for decades. "Derek Morrison, you have been found guilty on all 23 federal counts. Your systematic targeting of minority-owned businesses, your use of violence and intimidation, and your conspiracy to deny citizens their constitutional rights represent some of the most egregious civil rights violations this court has seen." Derek sat motionless as his fate was sealed. "I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years for racketeering and money laundering." The gavel's final strike marked the end of Derek Morrison's reign of terror and the beginning of systemic change that would protect communities across America. Derek's criminal empire collapsed like a house of cards. Federal asset forfeiture seized his entire fortune, luxury condos, offshore accounts, and the properties stolen from his victims. The $50 million estate would be distributed among the families and businesses he had destroyed. 12 corrupt city officials faced federal indictments. Police Chief Collins resigned in disgrace. Councilman Bradley cooperated with prosecutors to avoid life imprisonment. The web of corruption that had enabled Derek's crimes unraveled completely. Soul Kitchen reopened to lines stretching around 3 city blocks. Customers traveled from across the country to eat at the diner where a grandmother's skillet had defeated an empire of hate. Maya's story became required reading in civil rights law courses and business ethics programs. Maya used Derek's seized assets to establish the Sweet Auburn Community Land Trust, ensuring that her neighborhood could never again be stolen through gentrification. Property deeds were transferred to community ownership, protected by federal law against predatory development. The 12 black-owned businesses Derek had destroyed received funding to rebuild and reopen. Morrison's victims, as they became known, formed a support network that helped other communities resist similar attacks. Their collective voice became a powerful force for economic justice. Jasmine Patterson received a full scholarship to Harvard Law School, funded by civil rights organizations inspired by Maya's example. She planned to specialize in community protection law, carrying forward the fight Maya had begun. "You taught me that sometimes the best way to serve justice is to let evil expose itself," Jasmine told Maya during their final dinner together before law school. "I want to help other communities find their own Maya Williams." Maya's transformation from broken restaurant owner to community hero reflected a deeper healing process. The nightmares that had plagued her since leaving the CIA finally stopped. She found peace in using her skills to protect rather than destroy, to build communities rather than topple governments. Mr. Washington, now 86, remained at his corner booth every afternoon, holding court with visitors who came to hear first-hand accounts of Maya's victory. "That girl's grandmother would be proud," he told anyone who would listen. "She fed souls with more than food. She fed them with justice." Officer Martinez received promotion to detective, his honest service finally recognized after Derek's network of corruption was exposed. He continued his daily patrols past Soul Kitchen, ensuring Maya's safety and symbolizing the partnership between law enforcement and community. Maya's case prompted federal legislation protecting small businesses from predatory development practices. The Williams Act created legal frameworks for communities to resist gentrification while preserving the rights of legitimate developers. FBI field offices established community protection units, tasked with investigating systematic targeting of minority-owned businesses. Maya consulted on training programs, teaching agents to recognize patterns of economic terrorism disguised as development. Derek Morrison spent his first year in federal prison as a target for inmates who despised his crimes against children and communities. His former wealth and connections meant nothing behind bars. Prison psychiatrists diagnosed him with severe personality disorders that made rehabilitation impossible. His few remaining supporters abandoned him after recordings surfaced of him planning to murder Maya and Jasmine if his legal appeals succeeded. Derek Morrison became a cautionary tale studied in criminal justice programs as an example of how privilege and prejudice could create monsters. Soul Kitchen expanded to include a civil rights museum displaying Derek's seized evidence and Maya's documentation of his crimes. School groups toured the exhibits, learning how ordinary citizens could fight extraordinary evil through preparation, patience, and legal strategy. Maya's story inspired similar resistance movements in dozens of cities. The hashtag #SkilletJustice evolved into a nationwide symbol of community empowerment. When bullies threatened the weak, people remembered that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room was the one they never saw coming. Every evening at closing time, Maya touched her grandmother's photograph and whispered the same promise. The recipes are safe. The community is protected. Justice is served. Derek Morrison had tried to erase history. Instead, he had become its cautionary footnote. Maya Williams had written a new chapter in the American story of justice. 6 months after Derek Morrison's conviction, Soul Kitchen had become a pilgrimage site for justice seekers worldwide. The waiting list stretched 3 weeks as visitors flew in from across the globe to experience where justice was served alongside cornbread. Maya Williams trained her 15th group of restaurant owners in strategic business defense, combining legal knowledge, community organizing, and practical self-defense. Students came from Detroit, Oakland, Birmingham, and dozens of cities where predatory developers threatened historic neighborhoods. Your greatest weapon isn't violence, it's preparation, Maya told assembled entrepreneurs. Know your legal rights, document everything, build community alliances, and never let them see you as an easy target. Jasmine Patterson, now in her second year at Harvard Law, became the youngest person appointed to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division internship program. Her thesis on economic terrorism in urban development was being adapted into federal policy. Maya saved more than my life, Jasmine told a packed Harvard auditorium. She showed me that power isn't about what you destroy, it's about what you protect. Maya officially adopted Jasmine, ensuring family support forever. Their bond symbolized generational transfer of resistance knowledge from mentor to student. Sweet Auburn became a model for community-controlled development. Property values rose sustainably while longtime residents maintained ownership through the Community Land Trust. 3 new Black-owned businesses opened monthly, all offering employee self-defense training. Crime dropped 67% as community solidarity strengthened. Residents created networks that made predatory targeting impossible. Maya's victory inspired broader community self-determination movements. Mr. Washington, now unofficial mayor of Sweet Auburn, held daily court at Soul Kitchen's corner booth. Visitors worldwide sought his wisdom about resistance and standing up to bullies. The documentary Skillet Justice, the Maya Williams story, won 3 Emmy Awards and was translated into 12 languages. International communities adopted Maya's strategies across cultures and legal systems. #Maya's Kitchen evolved into a global network of protected businesses sharing intelligence about predatory developers. When bullies targeted one member, hundreds mobilized within hours. Derek Morrison died in federal prison during his 3rd year, officially from heart attack, but unofficially from complete social rejection. No family claimed his body, no friends attended burial, no legacy remained except warning about unchecked hatred. His properties became affordable housing cooperatives. Morrison Development Group headquarters was converted into a community center offering free legal aid. Every trace of his empire became tools for community empowerment. Maya proved heroes aren't born. They're ordinary people who refuse to accept injustice and prepare to fight it effectively. Strategic thinking, community support, and legal knowledge could defeat any bully. True strength isn't about fighting, Maya reflected. It's knowing when to fight, how to fight, and what you're fighting for. Fight smart, not angry. Her Stand Your Ground Legally workshop spread to 200 cities. The manual, The Skillet Strategy, How to Defend Your Community Without Becoming a Criminal, topped bestseller lists and became required reading in business schools. Soul Kitchen's expansion included a civil rights museum displaying Derek's evidence and Maya's documentation. School groups learned how ordinary citizens could fight extraordinary evil through preparation and legal strategy. Skillet justice became a nationwide symbol of community empowerment. When bullies threatened the weak, people remembered the most dangerous person was often the one they never saw coming. Every evening, Maya touched her grandmother's photograph. The recipes are safe, the community is protected, justice is served. If Maya's story inspired you, share it with someone who needs hope that David can defeat Goliath. Support your local Black-owned businesses. They're the hearts of communities under attack. Learn your legal rights because knowledge is your most powerful weapon. Document everything. Build community networks. Prepare strategically. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Maya's situation? How can we support small businesses facing intimidation? Subscribe for more stories proving ordinary people accomplish extraordinary justice when they refuse silence. The next time you see someone bullied, will you watch or remember Maya Williams and find your way to stand up? Heroes aren't born in comic books. They're created in kitchens and communities where people decide enough is enough. Maya's skillet hangs in the Smithsonian, but her real legacy lives in every person choosing courage over comfort, preparation over panic, justice over silence. Skillet justice, Maya's kitchen, stand up, speak out. Remember, sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one they never see coming.